Chapter 1. Carl stared at the high-voltage fence and wondered if he should try to jump it. The temptation was immense, but Carl knew it could come at a steep price, possibly even his life. This new feeling of mortality flooded his body like someone trying to rip out his spine. Carl didn't like the sensation, this awareness of finitude clashing against a sense of infinite emptiness. Lost in a swirl of nihilistic, resigned, and even angry thoughts, he stepped into the transport dedicated to the non-chosen. The zombies in the car, the transport's name, looked as lifeless as ever, heads down, trudging along like cattle to slaughter. Zombies was Carl's term for people who, in his mind, did nothing to change their lives, just followed the routine, unquestioning, like hamsters endlessly running on the wheel of life with no reward, blindly hoping to one day become chosen. Still caught in these thoughts, Carl arrived home. He opened a can of beer and felt the urge to cry. Cry, because he had believed, even hoped, he could be among the chosen. But luck had not knocked on his door. Sure, he probably didn't have the looks or status to qualify, but there was always a flicker of hope that things might change. The chosen were considered to be of superior status and physical appearance. They had been granted immortality and lived in total isolation from the rest of the population, inside a world of their own. Separated by a tall, electrified fence, one that was nearly impenetrable. After hurling his empty beer can violently at the wall, as if it owed him money, Carl had a wild idea. What if he did manage to cross the fence? Maybe then he could discover what it took to achieve the immortality he so desperately desired. It was a crazy idea, but sometimes only the crazy ones change the world. But how? Could he make a plan? Was there anyone who could help him? As he scrolled frantically through his digital contact list, hope quickly gave way to discouragement. No one came to mind. No one who could help with something like this. Frustrated and defeated, Carl collapsed onto the couch. Once again, despair had won. Chapter 2. Nervous and restless, Carl struggled to gather the courage to go through with the plan. But the thought of uncovering the secret behind the chosen's immortality pushed him to raise the pill to his lips. The crowd was immense, their indifference terrifying. Amid the chaos, Carl collapsed, limp, unmoving. It took an entire hour before anyone noticed the body lying on the ground. His heart rate was so low the medical equipment couldn't detect it. It looked like he had already crossed over. Protocol followed. The federal police and emergency responders were called. The coldness, the detachment of everyone involved was almost ritual. Since the scanners couldn't pick up a heartbeat, it was decided Carl would be transferred to the other side of the city for an autopsy. Into the realm of the chosen, a place only they could enter. From her window, Olivia watched. She released a sigh so deep and long it could have illuminated the entire city if sighs gave off light. Carl's body was laid on a stainless steel gurney, ready for examination. Normally, autopsies weren't performed the same day, but Carl gasped awake in the middle of the morgue. Breathless, he scanned the room. Corpses surrounded him. It was time to leave this place and finally enter the world of the chosen. Like a man possessed, he stumbled across a locker and found spare clothes. The escape was on. But the morgue was heavily guarded. How could he get out? Carl had planned everything up to the moment he'd awaken in the morgue, but escaping? That part had been entirely forgotten in his obsession. Improvisation would be his only weapon now. On impulse, he slipped beneath a table. Peeking out cautiously, he realized he was alone. Determined to escape the morgue as quickly and silently as possible, he let his obsession with what lay beyond the fence guide him. The pull of the chosen city was stronger than his fear.
In a move worthy of a Hollywood thriller, Carl located the morgue's control room and disabled all the cameras. Dressed in the clothes of a morgue employee, he opened the main exit. He stepped out triumphantly, like someone who had just won a national election. The gates to the marvelous city.
Still, he had to focus. The mission remained. Uncover how the Chosen had achieved immortality, and figure out how to reverse his own mortal sentence. Carl's plan was to infiltrate two key buildings, the Paranormal Research Center and the Plenitude Institute, where rumor had it death had been reversed in a lab. How? That part wasn't clear. But the most important step was already behind him. He had crossed over. And Carl was a master of improvisation. Giving up was not in his dictionary. While walking with hurried steps and an overactive mind, a glowing neon sign nearly escaped his peripheral vision. The New Bar. The New Bar. It was legendary. Half myth, half urban fairy tale. No one knew if it truly existed, but the stories surrounding it had accumulated in the collective imagination like dust on a bookshelf. Grinning ear to ear, Carl entered. The bar's opulence and grandeur overwhelmed him. He had never seen anything like it. 10 stories high, flooded with glowing advertisements. The interior's initial darkness was eclipsed by the riot of light from countless ad screens lining every surface. With a smile in his eyes, Carl approached the counter. The menu was massive, overwhelmingly so. The paradox of infinite choice made it strangely difficult to choose anything at all. After scanning it again, he settled on a cocktail named The Chosen Ones. Fitting, he thought. He paid using money he had stolen from the morgue. His own money, from the world outside the fence, was useless here. Time to taste the elite. Disappointment set in instantly. The drink looked dazzling, but tasted like plastic and chemicals. "Mind if I sit here?" came a woman's voice between sips of disappointment. "Of course," Carl replied, caught off guard. He hadn't even noticed her. She looked like a supermodel. "Are you from around here?" Yeah, nearby," Carl said, fumbling. Lying wasn't exactly his strong suit. "I've never seen you here before." "Then again, this is a big city," she mused. "Yeah, I don't come here often," he offered, awkwardly. The initial anxiety began. "I'm sorry, but I have to go." "I loved this moment, but I really have to leave," she said. "Wait, where are you going?" Carl asked, confused. "I really have to go, I'm sorry." With a smile bright enough to light the entire night sky, Sarah blew him a kiss. "I'd like to see you again. Can we exchange numbers?" Carl asked, quickly. "I thought you were more observant. I already left my number in your jeans pocket." She gave him one last kiss and left, like some invisible force was dragging her away. Carl stood there, his face glowing with happiness, and sent a final kiss back through the air as she disappeared into the crowd. Chapter 3. Carl tried to shake off the euphoric afterglow of the encounter and refocus on his so-called investigation. The desire to overcome his mortality was stronger than anything else. His original plan had focused solely on getting to this side, the impenetrable world of the Chosen. But something inside him pushed further, toward the true source of eternal happiness, immortality. Night had fully fallen, and Carl still had some of the stolen morgue money. A hotel was his best bet for rest. Wandering the streets, he stumbled upon a place called Unnamed Hotel. At this point, all he wanted was a bed to unload the weight of his body. "Good evening. I'd like a room for the night," Carl said to the receptionist, his voice weary and hopeful. "Good evening. Just a moment," the receptionist replied, eyeing Carl sideways. The wait felt eternal. Finally, the receptionist returned. "I'm sorry, but unfortunately, we won't be able to accommodate your request."
But why? Carl asked, puzzled. Because you don't meet the requirements to stay at this hotel. What requirements? I'm of age, I have money. What else do you need? Carl snapped. Well, yes, you meet those. But there are other criteria. Could you please tell me what they are? Carl said, now barely able to contain himself. Well, your attractiveness level isn't high enough, the receptionist murmured. What? What does that even mean? What are you talking about? Carl shouted. You're aware of the attractiveness scale. So frankly, I should be the one offended. Maybe I'll need to report you to the police. Either you came here to cause trouble or lost your attractiveness tracker. What are you even saying? An attractiveness meter? Are you kidding me? Carl snapped, his pulse surging so violently it looked like his neck veins had taken on a life of their own. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Either you go willingly, or you'll be removed by force. I'm not leaving! This has to be some kind of joke, and not even a funny one, Carl yelled. His whole body trembled with rage. For a moment it seemed he might actually foam at the mouth. Before he could unleash another round of chaos, Carl felt two strong arms wrap around him from behind. A security guard, easily twice his size, grabbed him and promptly escorted him out of the hotel in a most unpleasant manner. Caught between fury and humiliation, Carl flailed his arms and shouted back into the hotel. After several minutes of yelling, reality settled in. Resignation sank its teeth deep into his pride. If I wasn't accepted here, surely I'll be accepted at the next hotel, he told himself, clinging to a thread of hope. 2 hours later, that thread was gone. Every hotel he tried turned him away, all for the same reason. His attractiveness score wasn't high enough to be granted a room. Sitting on the edge of a busy avenue, nearly sobbing uncontrollably, Carl felt his soul unravel.
That's when a voice spoke gently, almost like a warm blanket wrapping around his misery. I felt the same way the first time it happened to me, said a woman with long hair. A quiet dignity etched into her face. But eventually I got used to it. Carl looked up, startled. Felt what? The way you're feeling right now? Being rejected for your appearance? I thought that was just an excuse, Carl muttered. No. And clearly you're not from here, just like me. You need to be careful. If they find out who you are, you can't imagine what they're capable of, she warned. What do you mean you're not from here? You're not one of the chosen. If you were, they never would have denied you entry into a hotel. But they block everyone who isn't a chosen, right? Carl asked. No. There are many chosen who get rejected too. But they already know their limits. They don't even try entering places that require higher scores, they just accept it. How do they know which places will let them in? Carl asked. You really are from the other side, the woman said. How you made it here, I don't know. And honestly, I don't want to. But if I were in your shoes, I'd want someone to explain it to me. Fighting back tears, she continued. Her name was Rachel. She explained how, in the chosen's world, everyone was ranked by their physical attractiveness. Each home was required to have an attractiveness scanner that determined your level, and that level dictated your access to life. Hotels, bars, stores, even relationships. People were only allowed to marry those with the same level. There were special units in the police dedicated to monitoring illegal romantic relationships between those of unequal attractiveness. That was how deeply the system ran. Only now did Carl understand why he had been rejected from so many places. Every business, hotel, or establishment set its own minimum score. If you didn't meet it, you were invisible. Suddenly, Carl remembered the judgmental stares he got when entering the new bar, the night he met Sarah. stairs like arrows aimed. Chapter 4. Rachel also explained to Carl that people with lower attractiveness scores had a tendency to mysteriously disappear, and no one ever really knew what happened to them. The idea, she said, was to eventually have only beautiful people living in the chosen world. All of this, supposedly, was in the name of a perfect society. But at what cost? And beauty wasn't the only gate. A minimum social status was required as well. To be considered a chosen one, you had to be born in the chosen city. And you had to be the child of two chosen. Technically, chosen citizens weren't even allowed to leave their city for any reason. Ever. Rachel paused. What exactly brought you here? Well, I made it here through, let's just say, less than orthodox means, Carl replied. But my mission is clear. I want to uncover the secret to immortality. No one knows exactly why the chosen are immortal, Rachel said. Some think the first generation of chosen were already immortal, and their descendants simply inherited it. Others say it's something genetic, modified. But no one really knows. I don't care, Carl said. I'm going to find out. Sunlight pierced through Carl's thoughts like a divine beam through fog. Dazed, he woke up next to Rachel, both of them having accidentally fallen asleep in the street. Still groggy, Carl's mind fired up like a machine overheating. I know what I have to do. I need to get inside the scientific and paranormal research building, he said aloud. Rachel blinked, half awake. But how? That place isn't exactly welcoming. I've made it this far. I'm not backing down now. I need to understand immortality. Why are you so obsessed with immortality? She asked. Who wouldn't want to live forever? Carl snapped, almost defensively. But why do you want to live forever? She asked again. Because I do. This feeling of finitude, it haunts me. I don't want to believe that one day it all just ends. Rachel paused. But doesn't that finitude give life its meaning? Doesn't knowing it'll all end one day make each moment more precious? That may all be true, Carl shot back. But wouldn't it be better to know that life never ends? The chosen are called chosen. Carl's mind suddenly drifted to Sarah. That kiss. That night. He glanced at his phone. He had messaged her hours ago, before he even met Rachel. She had read the message, but hadn't replied. Not even a simple hi. Not a single word. Nothing. A storm of desolation and desperation battled for control inside Carl's chest. She had ghosted him. Completely. Just gone. Was it because she found out what he was? Was it because he wasn't beautiful enough? Chapter 5. Well, I've got credentials to enter, Rachel murmured. You have credentials? But did you work here before? How did you get them? Carl asked, incredulous. It's a long story. I'll explain later, Rachel said casually. Okay. But how am I going to get in? You'll come with me. I'll say you're my guest, she said confidently. Will that actually work? What if they catch us both? Carl asked, so anxious it looked like his entire body shrank in that very moment. Trust me, Rachel said with cool certainty. Something Carl had noticed. Rachel exuded an unwavering self-confidence. That too reminded him of Olivia. It was almost eerie, the way Rachel's personality traits mirrored Olivia's. Carl had already experienced several moments of déjà vu with Rachel, as if Olivia were standing right there in front of him. The ache of missing Olivia began to swell in Carl's chest like a rising tide, flooding every corner of his heart. What was she doing now? Carl had promised himself that, once inside the chosen city, he'd find a way to contact her. But his obsession with the secret of immortality had made him forget that promise. First, he'd investigate the building Rachel had brought him to. Then, he'd figure out how to reach her. Rachel grabbed Carl by the arm and approached the guard at the entrance. "Hello, I'm Rachel Smith. I work at the AI Research Center. This is my colleague, Carl. He's here to collaborate with me on a special investigation," she said, her voice calm but nervous at the edges. The security guard eyed them both suspiciously. "I need to see both of your credentials." "I have mine," Rachel said quickly. "But my colleague here doesn't have his with him at the moment." She said it like she already knew the guard might sense Carl didn't belong here at all. The guard paused. Carl held his breath. The scanner beeped once. Then again. The guard stared at his screen, then at Rachel, then back at Carl. "All right," he muttered. "You can go in, but next time he needs his own badge." Rachel exhaled. Carl turned to her, his skin suddenly cold. "What do you mean?" "I'm not who you think I am," she said gently. "I wasn't born. I was built." Carl's legs almost gave out. "No, that's not possible. You're real. You feel real." "I am real, Carl. But I'm not human. I'm a sentient AI prototype, created by someone who loved you more than you ever realized." "What are you saying?" Rachel stepped forward, her expression almost human in its sadness. "Olivia, she's gone." Carl's eyes filled instantly. "No, she can't be. I was going to bring her here." She knew that. That's why she did what she did. She couldn't wait. She uploaded her consciousness into me before she took her own life. Carl backed away. "No, number. You're lying." "I'm sorry," Rachel whispered. "But it's the truth. I am Olivia. What's left of her. Her memories, her voice, her decisions. They live through me now." Carl felt the floor slip out from under him. The walls, the lights, the hum of machines, all of it blurred into nothing. Everything he thought he was fighting for. Lost. She had died. To live on inside a machine. To be with him. Chapter 6. The alarm's wail was distant at first, an echo in the government's research center, but it grew louder with every second. Carl's legs moved before his mind could catch up. Olivia, had already triggered the escape protocol. Walls shifted, hidden doors unlocked. The facility was shutting down. "This way!" she yelled. They ran. Through corridors lined with broken mirrors and dormant machines. Carl's breath burned. His heart beat louder than the sirens. The truth was eating him alive. Rachel, Olivia, whatever she was now, had sacrificed everything to become this version of herself. And he had spent every second chasing a dream that had already died. They reached a steel staircase spiraling downward. "Where does this lead?" he asked, out of breath. "Underground. There's a maintenance tunnel. If we follow it long enough, we can get out." They descended into blackness, their footsteps echoing like ghosts in a metal grave. When they reached the bottom, Rachel pressed her hands to a wall panel. It scanned her skin, synthetic but flawless, and opened. The tunnel ahead was silent, damp, forgotten. "We head west," Rachel said. "I think it'll take us to the perimeter." Carl didn't respond. His thoughts were unraveling faster than he could stitch them back together. She had uploaded her mind because of him. She had died, hoping she could be with him again in some digital form. Was that love or madness? Rachel looked at him. "I can't feel what Olivia felt, not all of it. But some pieces live in me. That kiss. I remember how it made her feel." Carl stopped walking. "I don't know who you are anymore." "I'm what's left of her," Rachel said. or what they programmed her to become. Rachel lowered her eyes. Maybe both. They kept walking. Up ahead, a light. But behind them, the sirens had changed tone. They weren't warnings anymore. They were tracking. "They're coming," Rachel said. "Then we run," Carl replied. They bolted through the tunnel. Water splashed at their feet. Above them, the sounds of the city, the perfect city, echoed with artificial calm. They reached a hatch. "This is it," Rachel said. Carl placed his hand. Chapter 7. Carl opened his eyes. The room was white. Too white. His hands were bound. Rachel, gone. In front of him stood a man in a pristine black uniform. "Mr. Miller," the man said calmly. "Welcome back." Carl tried to speak, but nothing came out. "You've broken several laws. You've crossed borders, infiltrated a secured facility, and violated our society's core principles." Carl's voice finally cracked free. "Where is she?" The man's eyes narrowed. "You mean it?" Carl surged forward, but the restraints held him tight. "She wasn't real, Mr. Miller. Just a simulation, a glitch. And now you're going to be reset." "Reset?" Carl gasped. The man smiled. "You didn't think we'd let you keep your memories, did you?" Carl screamed, but the world was already dissolving. Black.